Greetings, Mavericks and new viewers. Tonight, direct and live from the Maverick News Network World Studios. This is Maverick News with Rick Walker.
Hello, everybody. What a program we have lined up for you tonight. And I promised, and I'm going to keep my promise, we are going to have Carl Larson from Ukraine Defense Support on tonight. It was a misfire, a false start last night. I apologize for that. We just sort of got sidetracked, ran out of time, but I'm going to bring him to you tonight. We also have Dragon standing by, and normally I would go to, I guess we will go to a little bit of a promo thingy here to transition into him. He's at McGill University. He's going to update us on the situation with the pro-Palestine, pro-Hamas demonstration there. And we'll get into the other demonstrations. Also, breaking news, Jagmeet Singh says he will support Justin Trudeau's new budget, and that means no election in the very near future. They're going to continue to prop up that Liberal government, but wait until you hear what Jagmeet Singh said about what happens after the next election. It's going to make you probably laugh. Also, we'll bring you some info on the campaign strategy, a new campaign strategy unveiled today by the RFK Jr. campaign. We've got that and a whole lot more right around the corner, so do not go away. We will be right back after this.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, defending free speech, Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, so we're going to take you to McGill University live. A Quebec judge today has denied a request for a provisional injunction to remove protesters from McGill University. They have an encampment there, a pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas encampment. It's been there, I guess, about 5 days. And joining us live, and I hope he's there right now, is our good friend and contributor, Dragon. Hello, sir.
What's up, guys?
How are you tonight?
What's up, Maverick? How are you tonight?
I am just fine. So, Dragon, thank you for
joining us. There's a little bit of a delay, so I'm sorry for that.
That's okay. I'll try to just pause in between each block of speech. Just bring us up to date on what you're seeing out there right now, Dragon, at McGill University tonight.
Well, right now I'm right in front of the chanting members. They are actually doing a sort of a ceremony, so I'm waiting for some more chanting. And as you can hear, it's loud.
I see. What kind of ceremony are they engaged in? Any idea?
I think right now it's I would call that. I think it's a prayer for the downset of the sun, right now.
I see.
So
Is that
I'm
some?
not really used to them to those culture, but I'm trying. So
Mhm. And the people taking part in this ceremony, or whatever I guess you call it, are they mostly Palestinian, or are you seeing people from other backgrounds participating as well?
I, actually, I've seen a lot of background around. There's some Jewish around. There's some Palestinian. You can see probably about every type of people, or domination, or as you can see, probably I can see there's a guy right there. He's having these hats for how you call that, the hat for the Jewish people. So there's one right there in front of me. Uh, you can you can see other people here.
Yes. So
It's a good blend of people.
So, Dragon, I know that encampment has been there for 5 days. We just saw today that there was an attempt to get an injunction to get them to move, not from the university, but from another party, and that was denied. We've seen violence on U.S. campuses. What has been happening there at McGill? Has this been a peaceful demonstration?
Yeah, it is actually. The McGill University has actually agreed to that till there's no violence demonstration, or anti-Semitism type of rhetoric. But this is where you hear the chanting right now, and it's we can ask ourselves, what kind of rhetoric is that, right?
Right.
So,
Now,
and the thing is, I would like to have someone that probably to ask a few questions, if that's a good thing.
Sure. Are you saying you would like to go ask someone some questions?
Yeah, if you want to.
Yeah. Go ahead. Just
I'm
go
good
walk
for
through
it.
the crowd and go talk
We
to
can
some
go
people.
for a little walk and see if there are some people who want to answer a few questions.
Yeah, go ahead. That would be fantastic. I'll just throw it to you. Go ahead and go find out what the people have to say.
Well, there's two ladies here. I'm probably gonna ask some questions if they want. I mean, would you like to ask? No, all right. They didn't want it to answer some question. Let's go see around there.
Camera shy, I guess. That's okay.
So as you
This
can
is-
see, hey, there's also, if you can see here, there's a tent for the that's the Communist Party here. They are just
course.
right in front of us.
Uh-huh. And I know, folks, that the
Yeah, that's funny.
attempt to get the court injunction
So
came
let's see if I
from-
can get
from two people.
some answer around.
Sure. Not from the university, but it came from, I believe, two students at McGill had attempted to get this.
Hey guys, mind if I ask you some question for a news outlet?
No, sorry.
All right. So it's pretty much right now, people doesn't want to answer anything. That's weird.
Not really.
Freedom of expression, eh?
Yeah, that's kind of the crowd, I think. Keep on trying, man. Somebody's going to talk to you. It's funny, people have demonstrations. They
Yeah,
want to
that's
get
for sure.
their
I'm trying
message
to,
out, and then they don't
Find
want to talk to the
someone who
media. Makes no
looks.
sense.
Oops, sorry. If I can find someone who looks eager to talk, that would be amazing. Let's try here. I'm sorry, can I ask you a few questions? Actually, I'm doing some. I'm on the air right now for Maverick News, and actually, I want to ask some question about the rhetoric, or what is the chant means. Actually, if you can.
What is that?
What is the chant mean?
But they say the chant in English.
All right. So, I mean, what is the chanting of from the seas to from the river to the sea? What does it mean?
From the river to the sea.
Yeah. What does it mean?
If you look in the map of Palestine, you're gonna see that. Hold on, let me see that. No, I don't want to.
Oh, it's okay. The camera is pointing around there.
Okay, it's okay. Look in the map.
Yeah.
So this is the land, the whole land.
Can I show you?
No, no.
Huh?
They just have to open the map.
All right.
I'm so sorry. So this is the river and this is the sea.
Right.
We want this whole land from the river to the sea.
All right. But does it mean that the HAMAS needs to die, or that the people need?
No, we're not chanting to kill anyone. No. We're chanting for liberation. We're not chanting to kill anyone. As you can see, there's Jews in here, there's Muslims, there's Christians. So we all want peace in the land, and in a land where there's apartheid, where people cannot live free, when there's a religion that is superior to the other, you cannot live like that.
No.
Yeah. So we're saying Hurriya, liberation. That's what we're.
All right. Well, I thank you. Have a good one. So I hope that will answer a few of your questions.
Sure. Try and get somebody else there, Dragon. It was a little difficult to hear what she had to say, honestly.
Sure. We can try anybody else.
Sure, yeah. Somebody will be friendly.
It's kind of loud. Sure. What kind of question should I ask?
Ask them what they want from the university and why they're protesting there.
What kind of question should I ask? Ask them what they want from the university and why they're protesting there. Sorry? What?
What do they want from the university? What are they demanding? What is it that they want? Do they want divestment? They must want something.
Sure. Well, I'm gonna try with these guys. Probably they will be eager to answer some questions. Hey guys, I'm sorry. I'm working for a news outlet, and I would like you to ask a few questions. All right. So that's pretty much. Okay, let's see around there if I can have some answer around here.
How are they ever going to achieve anything?
It's not easy to have some answer, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, lady. I would like to ask you a few questions for a news outlet if you're interested. No? All right. At least I've been a gentleman.
Well, yeah. You're doing great there, Dragon. This is very good. The fact that they won't talk to you is, part of the story, actually. I'm not sure why people are like that, camera shy, or they just don't trust the media.
Can I ask you a few questions, sir? All right. Thanks. Yeah, well, I would say that there's probably a few of that too. Who can we trust today, huh?
What I would suggest is, because you're live, why don't you just walk right up to somebody and just ask the question? Just say, like, we're live on the air. Can you just explain to me, why are you here? What do you want from the university? Just ask the question. And if they don't want to talk to you, then they'll say so, but they might just answer the question directly if you just walk right up and ask.
Good idea. Let's try this strategy. We'll try.
Yeah. Try and pan down just a little bit there, Dragon. Getting a lot of sky.
Real quick. All right. Have a good one. Okay.
You're doing good, man. You're doing good.
First experience, eh? Always fun.
It's a very difficult thing to walk up to strangers and ask a question, much more difficult than people realize.
Sorry, can I ask you a question real quick? Actually, I wanted to ask, what is the protest wanted to ask from the McGill University?
Oh, ok. Parler français?
Oui.
Okay. Ben, parce qu'il y a beaucoup d'étudiants là, d'être devant la porte là, pour
Ouais.
demander seulement ils sont devant la salle.
All right.
Moi, je le connais.
Merci. So, he answered me in French that there was probably some people around in the corner around there that I could probably ask a few questions
Okay.
about the demands on McGill's from the protesters. So that's going to be a good try here.
Yeah, Dragon, just a suggestion, but if you can respectfully, aim the camera at the people as you're speaking to them, it will make a little more sense visually for the viewers, so we can see who it is you're talking to. And if they don't want to be videoed, then you can pan away.
Right?
Just try to, I know that some people don't like it, so
Yeah, like with the first lady. Yeah.
yeah, just try to be
I'm trying to be
respectful.
actually.
But they're there in a public place. They're at a demonstration. They know there are cameras around, and it's quite appropriate, really, for
gonna
a
try
news
something here.
organization to.
Sorry, sir.
just
Can I ask you a few questions?
footage.
All right. Sorry, ma'am. Can I ask you a few questions? Ouais, est-ce que je peux vous poser quelques questions? So I got someone here I can probably ask for. So, je me demande, en fait, est-ce que les manifestants ont une demande envers l'université? En fait, je me demande, oui, envers les autorisations ou aussi envers est-ce que vous avez des demandes envers le gouvernement ou...
Non, moi, j'ai passé par ici.
Il n'y a pas de problème. So people are indeed eager to answer much. I'll go try something else. Can I ask you a few questions? Sorry. Oh well, people are close like an oyster.
It's a skill to get people to talk. It is. Can you walk up and just show us that the people making the, can you get us some footage of the people
Est-ce que je peux vous poser
singing or
quelques questions?
chanting or whatever?
En fait, je me demande, vous participez à la manifestation?
Bien sûr, je suis venu voir. On m'a souvent demandé pourquoi je ne serais pas. Finalement, je suis venu.
En fait, je pose en anglais?
Yeah.
All right. En fait, je ne sais pas si ça vous intéresse.
OK.
Actually, well, I got a few questions about the protest. I mean, what is the situation? What is actually the protesters demanding from the school?
Quoi tu demandes?
Yeah.
What is actually Pierre, écoute, je passe vers le monde et puis comment que les gens sont traités. Écoute, écoute ça un peu pas TVA, là. TVA, c'est de la merde. Mais écoute un peu.
Non, en fait, je travaille pour un indépendant moi-même.
OK.
I'm independent, so.
OK. Mais effectivement, dans le fond, avec tout ce qui se passe, écoute, ils sont plus aucunement respectés. Et je pense que c'est très important d'être respecté.
So basically, nobody's getting respect anymore.
No, like we said, Canada, so
Yeah.
non, c'est
So you can hear it probably from one Quebecer to that knows probably a bit about the subject.
Yeah.
So
Can you point
That
the
way they
camera
keep
at this
respecting
person so we can see
there's
them,
no
Dragon?
problem. Maybe they will be understand too. So
sorry. What's
Can
up,
we
Rick?
see? Can we see this gentleman? Can you point the camera at him so we can see the person that you're talking to?
Right. Hold on. Whoops. I got a problem with my other phone. Sorry, I can hear you, Rick. Hold on. I need
I'm just wondering if you can point the camera at the person when you're talking to them so we can see them.
Yeah, there you go. If you if I can film you for a second, if
See
that's
their
okay.
smiling face.
Ben, t'es pas là, au pire, juste...
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, the guy doesn't want to be filmed, but okay, let's say that... Okay.
Can you just walk up and get us the speech, Dragon? Can you walk up and just shoot the speech?
Palestine and Canada are both occupied territories. If we want to resist colonization abroad, also have to address how we are complicit in continuous colonial processes on the land on which we organize.
Can you get up closer, Dragon?
Especially at McGill University, a university named after a slave owner. We also recognize that worldwide decolonization isn't just a metaphor for social justice or societal improvement. And it doesn't just involve acknowledgement. It involves the material repatriation and giving back of indigenous land and life. Both in Canada and in Palestine. In our organizing this year and at this encampment, let's be intentional about uplifting and amplifying indigenous organizations and wishes on Turtle Island and abroad.
Well, there you go. So as you can see, it's kind of peaceful, but you know, the rhetoric is there. There's a lot of chanting and
Okay. So why don't you turn the camera around on yourself, Dragon, and then we can see you and talk to you for a moment. There you are. Awesome.
there you go. You can see me, right?
Yes. Yeah, we can. So it's been mostly peaceful, but what we're hearing is this chant saying Turtle Island to Palestine. Occupation is a crime. So what I take from that is Turtle Island is all of North America and part of Central America, and they want all that land back to indigenous people all the way over to Palestine, which is most of the world. Am I hearing that correctly?
Exactly. Well, on the other side, just before I went on the air, they were chanting about actually Canada being actually criminals because we're participating into the genocide. So that's the idea.
Right.
So they want that to be ending. That's the cue that I got from them. But yeah.
I mean,
that's what it is.
The words seem pretty clear to me what they really want. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it is. To me, it's blatant.
I would say dangerous, actually.
It is pretty blatant. I think the rhetoric is there. You can hear it as same as I can hear it too. I mean, we both hear the same message.
Amazing. Truly amazing. How many people would you say are there, Dragon? How big is the crowd?
How many people would you say are there?
Well, I would say about 150, 200.
Okay.
Pretty quick calculation.
Right. And you were speaking, you said to some officials there earlier in the day about the conditions that they sort of set out for the demonstrators. They're letting them stay there as long as what? That they don't say anything anti Semitic or do anything violent?
For the demonstrators, they're letting them stay there as long as what? That they don't say anything anti-Semitic or do anything violent?
Yeah, basically it's that until they're not trespassing the violent state or having some anti-Semitism rhetoric, they're all good to go. And also respecting the turf or the territory. So basically, that's what it is.
I got it. Well, I think we've kind of got this covered off. Is there anything else you'd like to add or think that we might be missing tonight, Dragon?
Well, most of the guys that I spoke to want things to be peaceful. They want that to be pretty much the end of the war, as much as it is. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So you can do your own opinion at home, guys. This is journalism at its best.
It certainly is. On the scene, live tonight from McGill University. Dragon, thank you so much, sir, for helping us tonight. You've done a great service.
Well, always my pleasure, sir. Always a pleasure to serve my freedom of speech.
Okay, just one last thing. Tell people how they can find your other work online.
Sorry?
Where can people find your work, your YouTube channel, or how can they find you if you have other material to
Well,
show?
it's Rising Dragon on YouTube. Ian Vizzo on that's on Twitter, but I got nothing on Twitter. I'm mostly on YouTube, so
Right.
you can see my stuff going on there.
Awesome. Thank you, Dragon. Appreciate you, sir.
My pleasure, sir. Have a good one.
Okay, there you have it, folks. Dragon from McGill University tonight in Quebec. We will be back right after this.
Maverick News. Fighting for freedom.
The information war is raging. Truth without integrity is worth nothing. Maverick News. Because those who have power and those who seek it must be held accountable.
The world is watching.
Join our family of truth seekers. Donate today and add your voice to the chorus of Maverick Knights. Donate at maverickdonations.com. Truth. Integrity. It's the Maverick way. Maverick News. The world is watching.
I'm back and oh man, we'll come back to this these protests, but right now I just want to tell you, breaking news: Jagmeet Singh in Canada, leader of the New Democratic Party, says he will support Justin Trudeau's new budget. That means when it comes up for the vote, the final vote in the House, he will prop up that government, that coalition, NDP Liberal government. He just let us know today. Here's Jagmeet Singh. But wait until I tell you what else he said.
So, New Democrats fought for some concrete wins in this budget that are going to make life better for people. We fought to make sure that kids going to school will have a nutritious program in school. We fought to make sure that people have free birth control. It's going to help women save money. We also fought for free diabetes medication and devices. Again, it's going to save money, improve health. And we fought for a protection fund for renters. It's going to keep renters in their home. Because of these things that we fought for, we're going to be supporting the budget. But there's problems that we raised, and I want to be very clear about those problems. I raised those directly with the Prime Minister. I made it very clear to the Prime Minister that I expect the Prime Minister and the Liberal government to fix these problems. When I raised these matters and I expected that resolution, the Prime Minister showed an openness to resolve these concerns. So we are going to make sure we hold the government to account over the next weeks to make sure that these matters are addressed and these matters are resolved.
Does that surprise anybody? Not me. Of course he's going to prop them up. He's going to hang in there as long as he can. Wants his pension. You know, the changes were made to the election date through the Elections Act to push it ahead just a little bit so that he would get his get the amount of, it's a bunch of the members of parliament would get the minimum amount of time so they'll get their full pension. So there's that. And in addition to that, he is a tail wagging a dog. He holds the balance of the power, maybe even the majority of the power, by being in a minority position propping up Trudeau. He's pushed this government so far to the left. We're in territory we've never been in before. That much is for sure. So what this means is there won't be an election, say, within the next 6 months at least, because, well, I would say probably 6 months, maybe a year, because this could have been an issue of confidence. If the budget had failed, didn't pass, then of course that can trigger an election because it becomes a vote of non-confidence, and that can force an election. It's not going to happen. Not right now, but it's coming. Trudeau's days are still numbered, and what we've seen is a lot of heat on Trudeau in the last 24 hours, again, from Pierre Poilievre, who has been highlighting problems with the government's policies on hard drugs, and also yesterday calling the Prime Minister a wacko. Oh, man. Kids. And then in the House of Commons today, and Poilievre's not backing down. He got kicked out of the House yesterday by the Speaker, and he came back today a little bit. He was not as boisterous. His language was a little more carefully chosen, so he didn't get kicked out of the House today. But there was this exchange between the Conservative leader and Justin Trudeau.
Biggest city, gun crime is up 66%. It's 100% nationwide. I just shared the tragic story of someone out on bail slamming his car into an innocent family. 2 wonderful grandparents dead. A beautiful baby dead. He was out on bail under the Prime Minister's catch and release C-75. How many more will have to die before he repeals catch and release and brings jail, not bail, for repeat offenders?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I will highlight that we worked with provinces, including many provincial Conservative leaders across this country, to bring in bail reform. We'll continue to work on things that are keeping Canadians safe. At the same time, the leader opposite talked about gun crime. Well, we move forward with some of the strongest measures on gun control that this country has ever seen. A freeze on the purchase of handguns, a total ban on assault-style weapons that has been in place for 4 years, These are the kinds of things that the Conservative Party and its leader have consistently stood against, even as we move to make our communities even safer.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
He mentioned all these guns that he claims to have banned and promised to seize 4 years and $40 million ago. How many has he seized?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
You know where this is going.
Mr. Speaker, there are thousands of different types of assault-style weapons that for the past 4 years have been rendered illegal to sell, illegal to buy, and illegal to use, including at a gun range. Mr. Speaker, we are now working on a program to allow those owners to sell them back to the government for them to be destroyed and get money so they can go buy other guns or other products if they want to that will be legal. This is about fairness, even as we move to keep Canadians safe. Unfortunately, the Leader of the Opposition wants to make those assault weapons legal again.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
All those weapons are still legal, Mr. Speaker. You can still own them. The Prime Minister says he's going to seize them. He's going to buy them. He spent $40 million doing that. So I'm going to ask again, how many guns has he bought? Just the number.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as the Leader of the Opposition knows, we are in the process of establishing that buyback program. The priority was making sure that those guns were no longer available to buy, to sell, to bequeath, or to use, Mr. Speaker, and that has been the case for 4 years. Now, what the Leader of the Opposition is conveniently refusing to opine on is the fact that he has committed to the gun lobby across this country that he would reverse the 2020 OIC that banned those assault-style weapons. He wants to bring those assault-style weapons back, or he can contradict me right here.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
I will contradict him because they're not banned right now. It's perfectly legal for people to possess those guns. They are easy to possess, and not one of them has been the answer to the question, is that he has not seized a single solitary one of them. He spent 40 million tax dollars that could have secured our ports and our borders, and he hasn't taken in a single solitary gun. Is that why gun crime has risen by 100% since he became Prime Minister 9 years ago?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Zero.
I will note, as did everyone in this chamber, that the Leader of the Opposition did not deny that he will be reversing the ban on assault-style weapons. He doesn't even think it exists right now. Well, Mr. Speaker, it does exist right now. It is illegal to buy, sell, or use any of those weapons. When the amnesty ends next year, it will be illegal to own them as well. We're giving an opportunity for people to sell them back to the government. That is what we are doing to keep people safe. That is what he will not commit to keeping.
The Honourable.
Okay. $40 million. And this is not a new thing. They've been, from the beginning of his. he's been all about gun control for 8 years. He's now spent $40 million. He has not even confiscated or bought back a single gun. Not even one. And there is the truth. The uncomfortable truth for Justin Trudeau. And here's Poilievre doubling down in an interview today on, I believe this was with CTV. And this is just a short clip from his interview. Him talking about calling the Prime Minister a wacko yesterday, a wacko Prime Minister with wacko drug policies. And though that kind of language got him kicked out of Parliament because he offered to replace the word wacko with extremist, but the Speaker would have none of it. He demanded that Poilievre withdraw his comment as per parliamentary etiquette. He wouldn't do it, got kicked out. It turned into a bit of a political melee of sorts. Here's Poilievre doubling down. Not sorry at all.
Yesterday, I was trying to get the Prime Minister to commit that he wouldn't import this Wacko idea to Toronto, which is already reeling from his catch and release criminal justice system. Car thefts, extortions, carjackings, and deadly violent crime. And he wouldn't do it. Instead, he divided and distracted with fear and falsehoods. His policies are Wacko. Hiking the carbon tax to 61 cents a litre, Wacko. Doubling housing costs, Wacko. Doubling the national debt and causing the worst inflation in 40 years is Wacko. And I'm just calling it as it is.
Yeah. And this is something that is resonating with voters. It really, truly is. Poilievre has a talent in a political theater talent. He's a great performer in the House, a great performer in videos. He's very media savvy. He understands the psychology of politics, I would say. And he basically knows how to push the right buttons to get a response from the Prime Minister and the public. And here is an example of a response to his latest performance in the House.
Well, TikTok, this is very, very simple. So Pierre got thrown out of Parliament today, but do you guys not realize what Pierre was doing? No, he wasn't trying to get Trudeau. He was exposing something, if you did not realize it. He just exposed the Speaker of the House. How do you feel tonight, Greg? I bet you feel pretty fucking stupid. Because you took it hook, line, and sinker in the ass.
Ooh.
I would be handing in my resignation tomorrow and stepping down from my position. Because he just exposed you big time in how wrapped up you are with that Liberal government. You're not for the people. You never were. You're working with Trudeau's government. Captain Wacko and his whacked out Liberal caucus, along with the NDP minions, as I call them. They're not leaders. They're nothing but followers, saying you're a follower. And you, if you keep following, are going to be the one that's responsible for the NDP collapse. You talk a big story, but you do nothing but kiss Trudeau's ass. How much money is he paying you, Singh? You're an ass kisser. You're not no fucking leader. You're not even the leader of your own party. You're a joke. But you, Greg, Pierre pretty much reeled you in. It was bittersweet. Cheers.
Okay, so there's some pretty straight up talk. Speaker of the House now under pressure to resign. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think so. But the Conservatives are calling for it after ejecting not just Poilievre, but also another member of Parliament as well. And then the entire caucus walked out in a skillful display of political theater. A Canadian moment. That much is for sure. What else do we have going on? This was a drone footage shot by someone by the name of Anthony Cabasa. And this was shot at UCLA at a pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas encampment. And what this footage shows is the protesters, if you want to call them that, and I don't think these are protests in many cases now, they've gone to a level beyond that, in my opinion. And this reinforces my view, because here they are shown training for hand-to-hand combat in advance of the LAPD coming in to dismantle their encampment. Here, I'll show you. Let's take a look at this footage together. Here we go. You can see them, they're getting instruction to roll around in a circle. So that they can fight with the cops. Interesting stuff. Huh. A wider aerial shot from the drone. And take note of those tents. There is some evidence, and there's some suggestion here that these tents are all new, that they've been provided by, in many instances, in the majority, I guess, by funding. And in fact, we have a number of reports coming in tonight and information flowing in here to say that there is evidence that George Soros is actually behind the funding for a lot of these protests. I don't think that should surprise anyone either, because really these protests resemble to me in many respects the BLM protests, what we see from Antifa, what we've seen from the Occupy movement. I would say that you're seeing a lot of the usual players here back out, but a little more, well, not just a little, a lot more motivated and fueled, I would say, by the rhetoric, by money. That's what's, I think, really truly going on. And, you know, this was UCLA overnight. Bring you this footage. Here we go. A lot of buttons to click. So what you're seeing here is one group of protesters versus another group of protesters. One group trying to tear the encampment down, the others trying to defend it. Tempers running a lot hotter here than they were at McGill.
Protect your mom, bitch! No, lady, move! No, yo!
It's my understanding that over 300 people were arrested at Columbia. And just to come back, I think I forgot to mention, you know what was actually surprising? This will make you laugh. It made me laugh. Jagmeet Singh, in an address last night, in another speech, said that if after the next election, he will not enter into a renewal of the Liberal NDP coalition. He won't support the government with a coalition. after the next election. But then, in the next breath, do you know what he had to say about that? He said, won't do it because he's going to win. He said he's going to win the next election. I suppose anything is possible. We've never had an NDP government in Canada before. First time for everything. I did live long enough to see an NDP government elected provincially in Ontario, and we have had other NDP governments provincially in other parts of Canada, but not federally. I don't think he's going to win. I don't think so. Polling certainly doesn't suggest that. He says otherwise, and he says that's why he won't enter into another coalition. But I beg to differ. I think that if that opportunity was there, he would take it in a heartbeat. Of course he would. It gives him power. He actually ends up controlling the government on many levels. So if you vote Liberal and they end up with a minority and need the NDP to prop them up against the Conservatives, he'll do it. And we will get more of the same. More of the same. Now, I think what we should do is it's coming up near the top of the hour, and I would like to bring in our guest in a moment, our special guest for tonight, Carl Larson with Ukraine Defense Support. He will give us a broader understanding of the conflict in Ukraine, and I'm really appreciative. I'm so glad that he can join us tonight, because we really do need to inject this balance into the conversation. It's badly needed here, and that's what Carl will do when we come back after this.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
Carl, thank you so much for joining us on the program today. I am so appreciative. I can't tell you how much it means to have you here, because I know that you're going to give us a fuller perspective on what is happening with this conflict in Ukraine. First of all, would you mind just telling people a little bit about your organization and what that's about?
Sure. Sounds good. And first of all, thank you for having me on the program, Rick. Very much appreciated. So my name's Carl Larson. I'm an American citizen. I'm not Ukrainian. I don't speak Ukrainian or Russian. Never had any ties to the region. Never planned to go there. But I did go there in 2022, March 6th. I crossed the border, so right after the invasion. And I was a soldier in Ukraine. I was in Ukraine for 6 months. I was in the International Legion for 4.5 of those months, and at the front lines for 2, east of Kharkiv along the Severodonetsk River. And then after getting back to the U.S. after 6 months, I only had a 6-month leave of absence from work, and I was running out of money, having health problems, and I didn't want to get divorced. So I came back after 6 months and started this group, Ukraine Defense Support, based here in Seattle. We got about 60 volunteers, of whom about 40 are here in Seattle and Washington State. And then the other 20 are scattered around the country. And so Ukraine Defense Support, 501c3, we've raised about well over $300,000 for night vision and drones and vehicles and medical equipment and Humvees. We've helped send 9 Humvees. We're armoring them, anti-drone guns, all sorts of stuff. And so Ukraine Defense Support does 3 things primarily. We, number one, send equipment, and we only send non-lethal aid. We don't touch or handle or deal with weapons. It's important to point out. But we do focus on supplying military aid because there's already a lot of groups out there helping with humanitarian aid and refugees. So we focus specifically on helping Ukraine win the war. And then, so that's number one. Number two is we do a lot of advocacy. So we work with elected officials here in Washington State and in Washington, D.C. and anywhere else we can. I personally, I've been to Washington, D.C. 5 times, I believe, since getting back from Ukraine. I was just there the week before last, spent over a week there. There was 18 of us who came from Washington State. Over 600 people total who came from the United States. I was part of the American Coalition for Ukraine, which is the big umbrella group helping Ukraine. They've got over 100 groups like mine and well over 2,000 members. And they put on these conferences about twice a year. And so we were really very privileged. I felt very privileged to be part of this, especially considering that, you know, obviously there was a lot going on in Congress while we were there, and we didn't plan it that way. It was just timing. And so it was pretty crazy. I met with 6 lawmakers, senators and congressmen and their staffers, and altogether there were over 300 meetings from all the members who were there, all the conference members. And I don't know if we played a role in the passage of the supplemental aid. I like to think we had a small part in that, but even if we even helped just a little tiny bit, then it was time and money well spent. So that's a major part of what we do. And then the third thing we do is public awareness and talk to people, primarily Americans, but also Canadians and other folks, to explain why it's in Americans' national interest to support Ukraine. Like, why should we care? Why should we send money around to the other side of the world for a conflict that we're not, directly, physically involved in?
And that is my, the first question, right? $61 billion. It took a lot to get that passed. A lot of people, many of them in our audience, and our audience is probably split 50-50 U.S. Canadian, people asking why, what good is this money spent? What's your perspective?
Well, it's a valid question to ask, and I don't like when people say, "Oh, you shouldn't ask that sort of question." Isn't it obvious? Or they're fighting for freedom, so we should just open our checkbooks and not ask any questions. No, I think it's a very valid question to ask. And I mean, we need a lot of money here in the U.S. Frankly, the economy is not as good as a lot of people say it is, and gas prices are through the roof, and taxes are up, and our southern border is a mess, and there's a million other things that we could spend that money on. So I hear it all the time. How come we're spending all this money on Ukraine, Carl? Seems crazy, right? I also hear it about Israel, right? Which is a whole other topic, right? I don't know. But the answer I would give is that it's going to save money and especially save American lives. And there's many, many reasons why. Just to cherry pick one or two, if Putin if he conquers all of Ukraine, he may only conquer part of it if he succeeds, but if he conquers all of Ukraine, we're going to have to rebuild all of our bases that were along the German-Polish border. We'd have to rebuild them along the Polish-Ukrainian border. That would be trillions of dollars, and we'd have to build them along the Estonian, Latvian, Lithuanian, Romanian, Hungarian, border, Slovakian, and then we'd have to station American troops in them. That's just a lot of money. I was stationed in one 20 years ago. It's a ridiculous amount of money. And then looking at American lives, China is looking very closely at what Russia does in Ukraine. And if Putin succeeds in Ukraine, well, every authoritarian country around the world is going to look at their neighbor and say, oh, well, the UN doesn't matter, sanctions don't matter, strong words don't matter. What matters is having a strong enough military and the willingness to commit atrocities against your neighbor, and you can do whatever the heck you want. And
I hadn't really heard anyone talk about, rebuilding bases if you have to sort of pull back from Ukraine. So I mean, that's a very valid point.
Yeah, and I mean, so that's just one cost, and then looking at Taiwan, everybody knows America is. We may not have a treaty signed with Taiwan, but we're definitely going to be involved if they get attacked by China, and that would. So basically, if China attacks Taiwan, thousands of American sailors are going to end up on the bottom of the South Chinese Sea, very rapidly, probably. Unfortunately, if you've done the defense analyses and you look at what it would take for China to invade Taiwan, it's not as straightforward as you might think. But if suddenly, let's say, China starts repurposing their factories to pump out millions of FPV suicide drones and thousands of amphibious boats, which they could do in a heartbeat, they could do that in a very short period of time, have those boats on the shore, issue a warno to their troops and have them all march to the shore and get on those boats and have overhead, millions of hunter-killer, autonomous, AI-powered FPV drones, each holding an RPG round. They would probably walk right over Taiwan, and they would certainly walk over the 7th Fleet. China has the most anti-ship missiles of any country in the world. And so if we send a signal to them that, Russia can do what they want in Ukraine, well, China's probably going to take notice of that when it comes to Taiwan. And North Korea will do the same with South Korea. And every other authoritarian country around the world that's as weaker neighbors is going to say, well, if Russia can do it, why can't we? So that's my pitch.
Messaging is very important, and that brings me around to thinking about the information war. I think that is probably just as important as the kinetic war, because you're dealing with PR and public support for the funding that was just passed, $61 billion. And that brings me to people like Scott Ritter, Colonel McGregor, other online analysts or pundits who, frankly, some of these guys have been on this channel, and I respect, with all due respect to them, they keep getting it wrong. They said this thing would be over in a matter of weeks or months, and here we are 2 years in, but they have the public, even in the United States and Canada, thinking that this $61 billion is not going to make any difference at all. That's what I'm hearing online. But you think this is still money that is worth pumping into the effort?
Yeah, you can probably tell from my perspective, I'd spend a lot more. I try to be very realistic, and I've let down a lot of my Ukrainian friends by telling them, no, this is not going to allow Ukraine to win. This is going to keep Ukraine in the fight. But really, it's vastly more is needed, and frankly, vastly more from the European countries, because the European countries really, they've let their defense industries stagnate for the last 60 years under the American nuclear and defense umbrella, and they need to step up. Trump's right when he says that they're not paying their fair share, and they need a swift kick, where to make them do that. And I think they are waking up. We owe Trump a real debt for saying, commenting, well, hey, if these guys aren't paying their fair share, then Russia, do whatever. And that was the wake up call. A lot of my friends here in America said, oh, well, that's just Trump, saying whatever, But my European friends, they really, they took note of that. And that resonated in Berlin and Brussels, and they're really ramping up their defense industries as a result. But you pointed out something really important, Rick. You mentioned that the soft power, the propaganda, to use a kind of harsh term, but the soft power from Russia, it's honestly more effective, I would say, than their military. Their military, they have a strong military, but it's not as strong as it was. And honestly, they're having so much trouble just in Ukraine. It makes you wonder what would happen if they directly attack NATO directly. I don't think it would go well for them. But their soft power really is very effective. And so The propaganda machine that they have running out of St. Petersburg is just incredible. And it's, Americans, we think of propaganda as like a movie or a poster or something that tells you to vote a certain way or support. No. Russian propaganda is on a different level. And there's a lot of deep dives that have been done about it. It really makes you question reality after being exposed to it. You don't know what to think, so you just tune out, which is their goal. Their goal is to just get us to not even be involved. And they support extremist voices in every democracy, not just the US, but they're really effective in Germany and the UK and everywhere, frankly. They're really effective in India, of all places. But here in America, they support the far right and the far left, and their goal is to get us to fight each other. I'm convinced they're behind the whole defund the police movement. I'm convinced. I've Googled it for hours. I haven't been able to trace any money behind it, but I'd love to. Because talk about a movement to destroy America's ability to work together, So they fund people on the far left and on the far right to try to just throw a monkey wrench into our system so we can't make any progress, and to shut down the moderate voices, 80% of the people in the middle who agree about common sense things. And so you mentioned, Scott Ritter and Colonel McGregor and others, and those guys are so obviously compromised, let's say. I don't know if it's I'm not going to spend a lot of my time debunking what they say, because they're just kind of, I would say, obviously propaganda mouthpieces for Russia. But I did listen to the fellow you had on here. You have him on pretty regular, Kevin Michelizzi.
Kevin Michelizzi, yeah.
Michelizzi, yeah. I listened to, you had him on in January. I didn't have as much time to prep.
No, he's been on pretty regularly. He was on just a couple of nights ago, actually.
Okay.
Again, yeah.
About a lot of things. I listened to his update on Ukraine specifically. I should have listened to it more. Sure. I think he's a lot more interesting to talk about, and I'd be happy to talk directly with him too, by the way. I thought his analysis was great. He did a really good job, speaking as somewhat an American who lives in Crimea. So, and I listened, in the first, I'd say the first 20 minutes of what he said, well, I couldn't find anything to disagree with. He gave a really good overview of the situation, and he's certainly keeping track of which bombs are landing where and what weapon systems are arriving with which side and all that. But then it was very interesting. He transitioned into giving his, after giving reports, he started talking about giving his, he gave his opinion. And based on his opinion, apparently Russia is a paradise and very well run, a great place to live. He does 6% approval rating.
Yeah, he does travel videos and things too, and I understand.
Yeah, I mean, we just have to keep in mind he lives there, right?
Yes.
Russia is not a safe place for an honest journalist. If you say the truth in Russia, you end up falling out of a window or down some stairs. I mean, in reality, Russia, it's not a great place to live. Maybe if you have a lot of money, but you better not say the truth or plan to vote.
Well, they do have laws in place. For instance, you are not allowed to say, and he's acknowledged this by saying, you are not allowed to criticize the Russian military, period. So I'm aware of that. He's acknowledged that. I do think he tries to provide balance. I think a lot of his analysis is very, very good, but he, of course, has to work within a certain box because of where he is. And I think it's important for our viewers to be aware of that. And I have to confess that, I think, sometimes over the past couple of years, my perspective has been skewed at times. I've allowed my perspective to be skewed by people appearing on the program and information that I've been receiving that I wasn't fully contextualizing. So that's why I think it's so important to bring you on and other people to try and get a better balance and a better perspective on this. So I really do appreciate this very, very much. And you know what? think we could probably arrange to get you on with Kevin. I think he would be open to it.
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to have a cordial debate, something like that, maybe. But yeah, I mean, I think it's important to understand people's biases and news organizations' biases. And, you know, I have a bias. Clearly, I'm pretty obvious about it. But, you know, I think that the newfound explosion of interest in freedom, individual news sources like your program is a large part in reaction to people's realization that mainstream media has a bias. You know, they're lying to us, and they've been lying to us. And some of them lie really overtly. Some of them are much more subtle and much more careful about their lies, right? But everybody's got a bias, and so it's important to try to be aware of that. And then you, of course, you know, with your media program here on Maverick, it's good for you to mention that people, you know, like you mentioned, Kevin lives in Crimea, so people need to realize, obviously, he lives in Russia, or at least Russian occupied territory, and so therefore he has to conform to Russian rules. We have to do the same here in America and in Canada too. We can't, you know, talk about. I mean, we do have rules. We can't say in America that we want to kill the president. We can't give details about how to join ISIS or how to, you know, molest children or something. There are always rules. There's always limits to free speech, but
yes,
it's good to be aware of those in advance.
Yeah. So let's backtrack a little bit, because, you know, when this whole thing started, my position was I didn't want a war, right? I don't want a war now. I want the violence to stop. And so I do understand the perspective of NATO expansionism. And some people say that is the cause of the war. I certainly understand that and subscribe to that to a great degree as well. But I also understand the perspective that Ukraine should be a nation state that should have the right to self-determination, to be a sovereign country that just determines its own political destiny. So I totally get that as well. And then when you look at Oliver Stone and Ukraine on Fire, his documentary, and the way that the narrative has been spun up since the very beginning, you know, we're being told by one side, mainly the Russian side, that it was a U.S. CIA-led coup through a color revolution that led to the situation we are in right now. I'm very interested to hear your thoughts on what it was that actually started this war.
Well, it was started by Russian tanks crossing the border.
Valid, yes.
By the way, it wasn't in 2022 when those tanks crossed the border. They crossed the border in 2014. We Americans, we think that the war started 2 years ago. In reality, it started in 2024. And as soon as you got set foot in Ukraine, you learned that very quickly. You learned that.
You made 2014.
Oh, did I say?
You said 2024. 2014, yes.
So as soon as you cross the border, you learn Slava Ukraini, Heroyam Slava. You learn you don't say after the war. Nobody in Ukraine says after the war. You always say after the victory. And you learn that the war started in 2014, not 2022. You learn a lot of other stuff too, I'll tell you, but you learn those on the bus at the border. And so, yeah, I mean, you know, it's a valid point. There are some, let's say, factors that Russia has a right to be upset about. And there's some legitimate concerns about how the Russian-speaking minority in Ukraine is treated. And there's some concerns about the border disputes and about, how exactly the color revolution, one person says color revolution, revolution of dignity. The other says CIA-backed coup. I honestly don't know how deep of a role the CIA played. Possibly a lot. I don't know. I haven't watched that Oliver Stone movie. I need to do that. It's on my list. But I mean, even if the CIA had a large role to play, the fact is that the current government of Ukraine has in internationally recognized polls, has a majority of support from the Ukrainian people. And I saw it there personally. There was, everybody complained about Kyiv, and everybody was like, they're not doing this right, they're not doing that right. Zelensky sucks in this way, blah 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 sucks in that way. But they bitch and complain, but they support their government much more so than Russia. None of them. I didn't talk to a single Ukrainian, including Ukrainians who didn't speak the Ukrainian language, by the way, who wanted to be part of Russia. And I was right there, 10 kilometers from Russia. So I talked to a lot of people using Google Translate and through third parties, and I had some very interesting conversations come out of that. But I never met a single Ukrainian who at least was willing to admit to me that they wanted to be part of Russia. And several of them admitted a lot of really negative things about the Ukrainian government, but they didn't want to transition over there. So I guess to sum up, there's many reasons why Russia might be upset, and some of them are legitimate. None of them give them a right to cross the border and take their neighbor's land by force.
Even if another government was involved in some sort of information war to convince people one way or another to support somebody in an election. I totally get it, because you have every governments from around the world always meddling in the affairs of other governments anyway. It's not like Russia doesn't meddle over here. So it certainly doesn't justify a full-scale military intervention or invasion. So yeah, I mean, not that I want to sit here and editorialize. I'm really more interested in your perspectives on these things. But there's another important aspect to this, and this is Vladimir Putin's reference to denazification. And over here in Canada and in the U.S., you hear about these Nazi battalions, which, you see the swastikas, you see some of these battalions wearing other Nazi symbols. Yep. But how widespread is that, and how concerned should we be about that in 2024? Is this a valid concern? Is it being overblown by the Russians?
Well, I think it is a valid concern, and frankly, I'm concerned about it. And I'll tell you a quick story. On my unit, I was in the 1st Battalion, Charlie Company, International Legion, and we found 2 neo-Nazis in our unit. And one was French, and I think the other was Swedish. I mean, a French neo-Nazi, right? Walking around with outfits with swastikas on them, leaving stickers for neo-Nazi bands like Screwdriver and such. And it took a while for us to convince the Ukrainian higher ups to kick these 2 guys out. In fact, a bunch of us had to threaten to leave before they would do it, but they did, fortunately. And I met other guys there who had these stickers and these patches. After a while, you start to figure out, oh, that's a Sonnenrad, right? Or, oh, that's a Totenvolkswahl. That's what that means. Okay. And, I was not part of Azov, and I would not join Azov because of their background. Sorry, I'm going to decline this call here. So I think it's a legitimate concern for international people to bring up. I do think that Russia's overblowing it. I mean, the head of the Ukrainian government is Jewish. They have a very active Jewish minority in the community that's very pro-Ukraine. The ADL and various Jewish groups have not said, hey, this country is run by Nazis. And frankly, we have a Nazi problem here in the U.S. I met Nazis in the U.S. Army 20 years ago, unfortunately. At the time, I had no rank, so there was nothing I could do about it. I'm glad that I was able to do something about it in the Ukrainian military. Kind of reflects better on them than it did on the U.S. Army. I think now they have rules. You can report people who have swastika tattoos or whatever. But yeah, I mean, it's a problem worldwide, unfortunately. And then Nazis are a problem, and then you got a problem with far left people. We met far left, just anarchist communists over there in Ukraine. And it's funny, people don't really talk about that, but these people, they have sometimes their own battalions, and it drives me nuts. These people are far left people that should not be anywhere near a position of authority. And so, is it a problem? Yeah, it's wartime. In wartime, you get crazy people. War attracts the extremes. You get the best of humanity, and I saw the best of humanity, and you get the worst of humanity. I saw that too. But does that mean that the overall Ukrainian war effort is somehow should not be supported because there's some bad actors involved? No, of course not.
Yeah. How important is this conflict to the United States and to NATO? I can see that if NATO is not if Ukraine is not successful, and because this is essentially a NATO supported venture,
right,
it's going to create serious cracks in the alliance.
Yep, already has.
Yeah.
Yeah. So sorry. And so your question is?
Well, I just want your perspective on that. How serious is this? Like, 61 billion from you said it's about saving money. It might actually be about saving NATO. If Ukraine is lost, it's because U.S. credibility is on the line here. Promises have been made to support Ukraine no matter what, to give them the resources to follow through. I said on my program several times over the past month when this funding was in doubt, I said, this is cruel to delay the funding. If you're going to make the promise, you have to keep your promise, because to not deliver on that aid at this point, I didn't want the war to begin with, but now that we're into it, if you don't supply that support, your credibility is shot. And it's cruel because now you've said to people, go ahead, defend your country, stand up and take action. And then you pull the rug out from underneath them, that leaving them to the slaughter. That's just downright cruel. You can't do that. That's my perspective on it at this point.
Well, I mean, we have to decide if we're going to support Ukraine or if we're not, and fortunately, unfortunately, there's a small minority in our Congress. I'm speaking of the U.S. Congress that is very pro-Putin, frankly, and for various reasons. We can get into that. And thank goodness that, Mike Johnson, with the help of a lot of prayer and a trip to Mar-a-Lago, saw that he had to do the right thing. What did he say? He said he was called by history to do the right thing, and he was, and he did finally. And he might lose his job over it, which would be a shame. But we all owe him a big debt for, what is it they say? You bleep or get off the pot. And he finally bleeped so that, we could move forward with this. And you can see the results that almost 80 senators voted for it. I forget the House side, but it was almost as lopsided. I mean, that's a reflection of overall support. I know that support has decreased, especially in the Republican Party, unfortunately, due to all the propaganda. But overall, American support, I can't speak for Canada, but I think it's probably higher. Overall support is bipartisan and enormously pro-Ukraine, which is, it reflects how black and white, good versus evil this fight is. I went to Iraq. I was a soldier in Iraq 20 years ago. I was one of the first American soldiers in. I drove a bulldozer that breached the berm on March 18, 2003. And, I was proud of what I did there and what my unit did. We did our job and we got out, which is, we did what we were sent to do. But, that conflict was there was a lot more shades of gray there. And it turns out, things have come out that maybe we shouldn't have got in there in the first place. Maybe there was definitely some false pretenses, unfortunately. And so you can make a strong case we shouldn't have gone in, or we should have built more of an international coalition or whatever, But in Ukraine, it's just good versus evil. It's, for a Christian like me, it's just clear which side God's on and which side I'll be judged when I meet my Maker by what I do at this point in history. It's pretty clear who I should support. And so that's reflected in the Congress, and that's reflected in the aid that we've done. And so that's $60 billion by the way, it wasn't just 60 billion. It was 60 billion plus the Repo Act. We can talk more about that. That's a little more complicated, but it's a huge win. And it was the ATACMS. And I know we've already been sent some ATACMS, but now Biden's got the political cover to send hundreds more, and they're already arriving. I got videos on my phone here of guys in my unit just jumping up and down, my old unit, right? Jumping up and down. And they're like, you see what this thing is behind me? This big thing with all these tubes in it? We just got this morning. And I'm getting videos of expensive work equipment turning into barbecues. So I think it's going to have a big impact. And that Kerch Bridge, what was it? Kevin said, oh, that doesn't have an effect on their logistics. I'm beg to differ. And I would say, if you live I'll send a message to Kevin if he's listening to this. I would be careful about driving across that bridge in the near term. I would drive across it real quick if you got to, or maybe find an alternate route.
So why is it, in your view, a strategic target?
Oh, it's the main supply depot for all of Crimea. I mean, and then for huge amounts of Luhansk and Donetsk of the occupied regions. I mean, yeah, they bring things in from Russia from the other side, but that's the counteroffensive last year that failed. Let's be honest, it failed. But it did achieve a few limited goals, and some of them it brought some of the major roads and railroad lines under artillery range. And now that there are ATACMS, that whole section is under threat. And so bringing things in from the Kerch Bridge is much safer until it gets blown up, which I would say is more likely to happen sooner rather than later.
I see. I mean, I know there are rail lines there. They've started to build, I think, an additional rail line or something up around that area in the event that the bridge is taken out, which in my mind sort of diminished the strategic value of the bridge, but that's just a backup for them. But I wasn't aware of the significance of it strategically that way.
Oh yeah, it's huge. And then those rail lines, you're right. Russia spent a lot of money to build rail lines closer to the coast, further away from the front lines, so that Ukrainian artillery couldn't hit them. And that's fine. They can do that. But I tell you, an ATACMS has a 280 kilometer range, so that means that those. I got to do my math, but I believe that means that those rail lines are in target. So, Ukraine's just going to wait for some nice, fat, juicy train full of, full of something that goes boom, and then they're going to hit it and they're goodbye to that rail line. So I think that the new ATACMS are going to have a major role to play in the conduct of this war. Are they going to win the war for Ukraine? No, but I think that they'll make a major impact.
So you mentioned good versus evil, and I stand firmly against any kind of torture or war crime. And just yesterday, a report came out in mainstream media here in Canada, I assume in the U.S. as well, saying that as much as 90% of Ukrainian prisoners of war have been tortured by Russia. After the Moscow terror attack, they arrested suspects. And the Russians released video of the prisoners, frankly, being tortured. I have the video. It's not a secret. They were displaying it almost like they were proud of it. Video of a guy's ear being cut off, another prisoner with being his genitals with electrodes attached to him being shocked. Can you speak to this and this report yesterday about the way that Ukrainian prisoners have been treated?
I mean, are you surprised? I mean, I'm glad that they have proof of it, but I mean, Russia's not a country that plays by normal rules. You can't even call this war a war over there. It's a brutal mafia state run by the world's richest man, and I mean it's really a house of cards propped up by petroleum money that is likely to have a civil war after he dies. But I mean, I'm not surprised by any brutality coming out of Russia. And I'm glad that there's proof of this. I'm sure there's a lot of other nasty things that happen that aren't caught on video. I'll tell you that in my platoon, when I was platoon commander back in 2022, excuse me, we had two soldiers, Alex Druki and Andy Quinn, who left my platoon and went and joined Ukrainian Special Forces, because I think they were just bored we were in training for 5 weeks. It was a really long training period. So they wanted to go and actually fight. And so they did. And they were captured by Russia. And there's a lot of articles about them. You can Google them, Andy Quinn and Alex Druki. And they were brutally tortured almost every day. They showed me their dislocated limbs and the marks on their back and the marks on their genitals, right? And, they were stabbed under their fingernails. Andy had his fingernail fall off. There was just a lengthy list of ways they were tortured that I've done my best to forget about. And they were tortured even after they gave up any information. They were just tortured for fun. And then they told me stories about how they were tortured. They were tortured the worst when they knew they were going to get released. That's when the separatists in the DNR who tortured them the worst. That's how they got their jollies out of torturing them, because they knew that they were going to disappear. It was just a horrific story. So I mean, we know that Russia does that. My company, we captured orcs. We didn't torture them. We made sure that they got food and water. We delivered them over to the Ukrainian MPs. We didn't see any evidence of torture from any other Ukrainian units. Maybe it happens. I'm sure it happens. Any unit. I heard about stuff in Iraq from Americans. So unfortunately, there's bad behavior in war, right? It's war. But Russia does this on a vast scale that is not comparable to a, let's say, civilized military. So I'm sorry, I can't speak directly to this report that just came out. I haven't followed up on it. I can just say my personal experience. Russian soldiers are bastards, and they don't play by the rules.
Let's talk about manpower, because we've just seen Russian officials come out and say that Ukrainian losses are the soldiers, about 500,000 have been killed. And a lot of analysts saying that, manpower is really the resource that is becoming shortest in supply. It isn't just the weapons, it's soldiers. Can you speak to this at all, or give us any indication what your view is on this?
Well, I mean, largely they're right. Manpower is the deciding factor, and in this, Russia has a huge advantage. Not just because of their enormously larger population size, but also because they have, put the country on a war footing, and they have managed to, they had a lot of problems with mobilization, the first two mobilizations that they implemented after the invasion. But now they've kind of figured it out, and they're doing what's called soft mobilizations. They did another one right after Putin's recent election. Everyone knew they were going to, right? And so they're flooding the recruitment centers with between 200,000 and 300,000 soldiers, and everybody knows it'll take about 2 months to get those guys trained and equipped. And so then there's going to be another big push from Russia, either in late May or early June, and all indications are that it'll probably be actually, I won't say where it's probably going to be, but anyway, there's indications of where it'll probably be. It's not going to be a big surprise to anybody on either side. Russia has a lot more men than Ukraine, and also Ukraine has to worry about its economy. If they mobilize too many men, it's going to hurt their economy. In addition, there is this thing, I forget what it's called. It's the post-Soviet population trough. You've heard of a population bulge. Well, this is a trough. And what it means is in the 90s, after the fall of the Soviet Union, all the post-Soviet countries got a little hungry. Like, it was pretty rough for a good decade there. It was horrible, right? I mean, people were resorting to cannibalism in some areas. And so people didn't have kids. And so therefore, there are not, now 30 years later, there's not a lot of 30-year-olds. There's not a lot of 25-year-olds, right? And this is why the Ukrainian military is one of the oldest, proportionally speaking, oldest militaries in the world. I mean, I met guys in their 50s and 60s serving alongside of me, and you just gotta maybe not march quite as fast and take care of older joints and such, but they serve just as well as you or I would. Does the key question here is, does Ukraine have the physical resources to carry on the war? And I would answer yes, in its current stage. Now, if Russia's able to pour, let's say, 1 million more men in, and let's say, strips its forces from the border with China and the border with Finland and everywhere else, and really sets up like a two-front war, as they tried to do in the beginning, where they tried to come south to take Kyiv, and comes at Ukraine from the east, and pours in a lot more people. At that point, Ukraine could have some problems. Ukraine just passed a new mobilization law that should help resolve some of their manpower shortages. And of course, they're trying to, encourage foreign fighters like myself, right, to go and fight. Really, we're a very, very teeny part of the Ukrainian war effort. We're not really all that huge, although foreign fighters do tend to be, let's say, at the tip of the spear, so of outsized importance. But is the manpower shortage going to mean that Ukraine is doomed to lose? No. In the short term, is it going to cause a major problem? No. In the medium term, I could see it causing a problem. In the long term, if Russia is able to sustain this war for the next, say, 5 years, I could see it being a major problem, yeah.
5 years. I mean, you throw that number out there. Do you see it dragging on that long?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I compare. My friends say, "Is this war still going on, Carl? We want you to get back to hunting or motorcycle riding." And I'm like, World War II lasted 6 years. We're only in the second after this invasion, right? We're at about 1941 right now, and if you recall, 1941 was a pretty rough year for democracy. Actually, England just about failed in 1941 and almost made peace with Hitler. They don't talk about it much, but they almost did. And imagine if they did. If they did, we'd all be speaking German. All of our Jewish friends would be lampshades. A lot of other people would be slaves or dead. Thank God that England held on during those cold, long couple years all alone. Just like Ukraine is holding on alone. And that's a comparison I like to make a lot is supporting Ukraine in 2024, in my mind, is as much of a moral imperative as supporting Britain in 1940 and 1941. I really think they're doing our fighting for us, frankly. But anyway, yes, the war could last another 5 years easily.
Wow. Well, that's a completely different perspective than we're getting from these pro-Russian pundits who are telling us it's over already. That's a huge difference in perspective. But given that they've been wrong all the way along, I'm very skeptical in everything they're saying these days. Carl, is there anything else you'd like to add today or think that I might be missing? I mean, I'd love to have you come back, and I know that there's some other people that you're in contact with that can also help us get a greater understanding. But the floor is yours if there's other information you'd like to share.
Well, I mean, there's a million things to say about this, but just to mention probably the most important thing, if any of your listeners are interested in getting involved, we've got many ways for people to volunteer. There's many ways to help out from home. Of course, you can donate, but what we're really looking for is remote volunteers to help research potential fundraisers, influencers, good good news programs putting out the good word like this one here. Advocacy, meeting with and contacting members of Congress. We've got 60 people. We got lots of teams, lots of good-hearted people. My group's about 40% Ukrainian Americans and about 60% regular Americans like me. So we're happy to have more hands. What is it they say? More hands make light work. So anybody who's interested in getting involved, just shoot me an email at victory@ukrainedefensesupport.org, and I'd be happy to talk.
Okay, I'll tell you what, I'll even put that up on a banner for you here, if I can. Here we go. And it's victory at Ukraine Defense Support?
.org, yeah.
Okay. And there it is, victory at ukrainedefensesupport.org. And that's how you can reach Carl directly. And there you go. We are definitely going to have you back on again, Carl, and some of the other people that I know you were in contact with. And again, I really, really appreciate your time today. We needed to have this conversation. I think it's been extremely productive. Thank you, sir.
Oh, of course, Rick. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it very much, and look forward to continuing the conversation again soon.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, I'm back, and yeah, I know that a lot of you guys probably didn't want to hear that interview, but too bad. We talked to everybody here, and some of you I know probably got some value out of that. I certainly did, and it is a conversation we needed to have around here, because there was truth in that. And I'll tell you this, as a journalist, I'm committed to getting closer to the truth. That's what we're all about here. And that means talking to people on all sides, getting as much information as we possibly can. And as I listened to Carl, the things I heard had the ring of truth. He was not afraid to voluntarily, without my prompting, venture into areas and information and make statements that were not always complimentary to his side. That tells me a lot. You know what else concerns me, though? The death of Russell Texas Bentley, which Kevin mentioned the other night. Lori mentioned it again last night. This is an American who went to fight on the Russian side with separatist forces in Donbass. Committed his life to fighting for communism, such as it is in Russia these days. I don't think it's not a communist country anymore. Nationalist, for sure. And I'll tell you this, I'm disappointed in the information that we're getting out of there with regard to the death of Russell Texas Bentley. A mercenary turned self-described, or I guess Russian-described journalist, I would say propagandist, working for Russia, who ended up dead. Kevin came on the other night and provided, I think, generally some good information, the information that he was provided. by Russian authorities, suggesting that it was Russian soldiers. We know it was Russian soldiers who ultimately kidnapped or apprehended Russell Texas Bentley, who was from the United States, an American citizen, over there fighting on the Russian side, most recently fighting the information war as a propagandist. They took him into custody, such as it was. All indications are is that these Russian soldiers from the 5th Tank Brigade killed him. A guy who was fighting on the Russian side, killed by Russian soldiers. Now, the information from Kevin was that these soldiers were werewolves. That was the information he's been given, that he shared with us. Werewolves are basically Ukrainians posing as Russian soldiers or corrupted by Ukraine somehow. But I'll tell you, the information, all of it that's coming out of there surrounding this story, completely inconsistent. There's no consistent information surrounding this story. Nothing. This is a post from journalist Alina Lip. She knew Russell Texas Bentley, and I'm sharing this with you not because I know a whole lot about this story. Lori knows a lot more about it. Kevin, I guess, sort of knows a lot more about it. But as much as they know, I don't think anybody knows a whole lot of anything about it other than he was killed by Russians. And you guys need to hear that too. Just within the last week, I saw that another journalist has been arrested in Russia. I see a lot of rooting for Putin in the chat. I'm not on Russia's side. I've never been on Russia's side. I'm on the side of peace. I want peace. And I want the fastest path to peace possible. I took the position early on that the war in Ukraine, in my view, didn't have to happen. And that NATO expansionism was one of the main contributing factors to that. But Russia is not blameless in this, folks. Nor is the United States. Nor is any NATO country. Everybody, there's a whole lot of bad behavior all the way around. And you got to remember, Russia bears responsibility here too. And I'll tell you, in my interview with Carl, I made reference to the torture of those prisoners arrested after the Moscow terror attack. Very disturbing to me. It's hard to have any sympathy at all for someone who commits an act of terror, kills innocent civilians in a theater. So I don't really have any sympathy for them, but I do stand against torture of any kind. And the torture of those prisoners was on full display internationally, sending a message, don't mess with Russia. They didn't try to hide that. What that was, frankly, and I can say it here in Canada because I'm in Canada, and I could say this about our own military without a lot of fear. That's a war crime, what they did to those people. And they put it on full display, but they don't care because, like the United States, Russia is not a member of the ICC, the International Criminal Court. Nobody's going to hold them accountable. And in fact, after the ear was cut off, Putin signed a declaration of immunity from prosecution for the guy who did it. It's like, I hereby declare that this war crime is null and void. Here's a pardon. And they even spread that information out there too. So if you're rooting for Putin, you're a very misguided person. You should be rooting for peace. War is a brutal business, and war crimes are always committed, I think, on all sides. That's the truth. And we need to stand against it and be vigilant in our stance against it. I certainly am, regardless of what side it comes from. And I'm concerned about this thing with Russell Texas Bentley, too. It's the inconsistency in the information. This clip from this journalist talking about Russell, listen to what she says carefully, and then try to reconcile that against what Kevin told us the other night about the werewolves. This doesn't jive. So she says here, so my good friends and colleague Russell Bentley, an American journalist, was killed in Donbass. This is now being confirmed. I have a few more details because he was my good friend. I am in touch with his wife. There are a few more details. The details are all very disturbing. He was killed, as you probably already know, not by Ukrainians, but by a group of Russian idiots of the 5th Brigade. He was even tortured. Take note, he was tortured, as they thought that they could get some money from him. They did not know that he did not have that kind of money. So they tortured him with a stun gun, and since he was already of somewhat advanced age, his heart gave out. For the most part, two people are to blame: servicemen, drug addicts. And I just hope that they will be found and punished. That information does not jive with what we heard the other day. That is to say that we were told they had already been apprehended and were in custody. Now we're seeing that they've not been found yet. Because his death is a huge loss for the entire community of my journalist colleagues, and a huge loss for all of Donbass. Since 2014, he had done so much good for the people of Donbass. You may recall my story with him when I went with him to an orphanage near Donetsk. He regularly collected humanitarian aid and helped people, children. I taped him a lot for my films. Be sure to watch it. He was a very smart person. Inconsistent information and always some excuse, some way to dismiss this as being the work of a criminal or some outlier or someone corrupted by Ukrainians, or to just blame it on Ukraine. In this case, folks, all the evidence suggests that Russell, Texas, he was killed by Russians, by Russian soldiers. That is the truth. What was the motivation? We don't know. Other reports coming out that I've seen say that they accused him of being a spy, the ones who apprehended him. And the inconsistency in the information that we are getting speaks volumes to me as a journalist. Whatever we're getting out of there is being sugar-coated. That much I am certain of, because I've been doing this a long time. You're not getting truth from that side. Sorry. As much as the people working there are trying their best to convey truth, there are restrictions. And I wasn't going to talk a whole lot about it, but because the story's been highlighted here a couple of times now over the past few days, I am sharing this additional information with you tonight. Because, again, I think you not only deserve to know, but you need to know to give you the proper perspective on this. If you think Russia is our friend, they are not. We are at war with them. I don't blame them for doing a lot of the things that they do because they're at war with us and we are at war with them. We're in a war. So you have to expect a lot of the kinds of things that we are witnessing. But it doesn't make it right. And I find it amazing at how effective they are at the art of information war. In fact, tonight, this report from NBC, reinforcing what I've been telling people here for the past year and a half, that we are being subjected to the most sophisticated PSYOP in history, the most sophisticated information warfare ever. Here, I'll show you what's coming out. I've shown you intelligence reports. I've shown you leaked memos, not just from Russia, but from Iran as well, proving what I've been telling you. Not just me sitting here opining on it. I've been giving you hard evidence. But so many people are just so unwilling to see. And I'm not trying to sway or skew reality to get you to root this way or that. I'm just trying to give you the facts and balance. And that's why Carl's coming back. Because, and other people as well, we're going to continue to tell you both sides of the story as long as people are willing to talk to us. And you know when I know people are up to no good? When they don't want to talk to you. What did we just witness with Dragon at McGill University? No, they didn't want to have their pictures taken. They didn't want to say anything on camera. They don't want people to know who they are. Why? Because they know they're up to no good. Some of them just camera shy. Some of them don't really know why they're there. Again, I've been doing this a long time. And I know exactly what goes on when you're out there in the field. Years and years and years and decades of news gathering. I know the score, man. And that's what goes on. But here, look at this. Russia is trying to exploit America's divisions over the war in Gaza. This report coming out saying that Russia is seeking to exploit the divisive debate over Israel's offensive in Gaza through overt and covert propaganda with the aim of aggravating political tensions in the U.S. and tarnishing Washington's global image, according to two sources familiar with U.S. intelligence on the matter. In its ongoing information war against the United States, Russia has shifted its focus in recent months to the Israel-Hamas conflict, seeking to inflame existing divisions in the West and to portray Washington as fueling the violence, the sources said. The effort includes artificial intelligence, fake social media accounts, and which is a long-standing tactic used by Moscow, as well as a spike in propaganda from Russian state media. The sources declined to share examples of Russian-generated bots on social media to avoid revealing U.S. intelligence gathering methods. Russia has repeatedly denied accusations it spreads disinformation abroad. Right. Every country is involved in one way or another. And they're very, very good at it. A spokesperson for the Russian embassy did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Here, I'm going to run some of this report, some of this video from the NBC News Department.
A new front in Russia's information war against the U.S., with the Kremlin shifting its focus to the war between Israel and Hamas, trying to inflame existing tensions in America, NBC News has learned from two sources familiar with the intelligence reporting and independent researchers. They say the Kremlin's using fake social media accounts and bots, along with propaganda pushed by state-run outlets. Just look at these posts attacking the U.S. government's response to campus protests. What is Russia's endgame here?
So Russia at times just wants to create more chaos. So this is just a win for Russia anytime there is a conflict in the U.S.
Experts say the Kremlin's trying to position itself as a champion of Palestinians while condemning the U.S. for supporting Israel.
This is an opportunity for them. This is a chance to divert attention away from their invasion of Ukraine and to focus the world's attention on Israel's offensive in Gaza.
Researchers warn not to overstate the influence of the Russian campaign.
These protests would happen with or without Russia's involvement.
But looking ahead to November, some top U.S. officials recently sounding the alarm.
There is a history here in presidential elections by the Russian Federation, by its intelligence services, and there's plenty of reason to be concerned.
The Kremlin has long denied interference, but with Russian actors now allegedly using AI to spread disinformation more easily, U.S. officials are bracing for what's to come.
And I would say that is really a fairly balanced report on it. And it reflects exactly the information that I've been gathering over the past year and a half. It's happening not just with Russia. You have other actors involved as well. I mentioned it earlier tonight. You have George Soros with his foundations, evidently funneling money into these protests. Let me show you, if I can. I appear to have lost the tab. Let me just repatriate that tab for you. I think you have, and you definitely have Iran working in here as well, because I showed you two leaked memos between two generals the other night, talking about exactly this, talking about the engaging in the information war and putting out this kind of propaganda. And here's a clip from Tehran TV. This is Professor Fode Azadi saying, "We like what we are seeing on U.S. college campuses. These are our people. They will support Iran in case of confrontation with the U.S. Iran can repeat in America what it did in Lebanon." So he's saying that basically they're using information warfare to get some American people, especially students, on side with them. And when the time comes and we have a full-scale invasion of some kind, he expects these American students, these protesters, a lot of them not students, to be on side with Iran and fight with Iran. Sooner or later, he says, this kind of support for the Zionist regime by the American regime will diminish. It might not stop completely, but its diminishing is important. This is why the demonstrations in U.S. campuses, he says, are important. What we in the Islamic Republic should do is, we are watching the demonstrations and we like what we see. But it should not end with this. If not for the Islamic Republic, the case of the Palestinian idea would have been closed years ago. In other words, Iran is behind a lot of this, if not most of it. The idea of resistance belongs to Iran. What did we just hear at the demonstrations? They've been talking about resistance. You are the resistance. Oh, where have I heard that phrase before? But on the operational level, when it comes to recruiting connections and building networks, the Iranian state has not been involved in a sufficient level. He's saying they have to get more involved, even.
تو این حوزه‌ها کشور کار بکنه. اینا
These American students are our people, he says.
ما هستن. این پس فردا
If tensions between America and Iran rise tomorrow or the day after,
تنش بین ایران و آمریکا بخواد زیاد بشه، اینا باید بیان تو خیابون از
these are the people who will have to take to the streets to support Iran.
مثلا ایران حمایت بکنه. باور بنده این.
Personally, I think he says that the potential to repeat in the U.S. what Iran did in Lebanon.
این کاری که جمهوری اسلامی در لبنان کرده خیلی بیشتر در آمریکا قابلیت تکرار داره.
Is much higher.
جمعیت حزب الله
Our Hezbollah-style groups in America are much larger than what we have in Lebanon, he says.
حزب اللهی ما در داخل آمریکا بسیار بیشتر از اون عددی هستش که ما در لبنان داریم.
America is the great Satan and our main enemy.
شیطان بزرگه، دشمن اصلی ما هستش. این حوزه‌ها
But we have hope in these areas. And so it ends this clip. Are you hearing what he's saying? What did I tell you last night? America is under attack. Canada as well. The West is under attack. That's what these protests are. They're not protests anymore. They are a form of fifth-generation warfare, a color revolution, disruption. That's what they're all about. Undermining the integrity of the nation. Take note. That's what it's about. You might think they're just mostly peaceful protests. No, they're not. They are fueled, financed, organized. They are a threat to democracy. And lots of evidence coming out over the last couple of days supporting also what I've been telling you for the last year and a half, that these kinds of events are funded and by people that I know most of you are not fans of. George Soros, Rockefeller funding, student protests erupting at universities. New York Post reported the student protests that feature 10 cities have been funded by organizations linked to two branches of the Soros-funded Students for Justice in Palestine, SJP. So here's the New York Post reinforcing again what I've been trying to tell people for the past year and a half. It's not that Russia or China or Iran start these groups. What they do is they identify groups that are disruptive to society, and they help them along, is what they do. They channel money in through back doors, provide laundered money in forms of donations. They get people involved. They support people who are organizers and who may not even realize they're being helped. They just support these things, sometimes from the shadows. So this group, the U.S. Campaign for Palestinian Rights, received at least $300,000 from Soros Open Society Foundations since 2017, and also took in $355,000 from the Rockefeller Brothers Fund since 2019. Other groups that have received money include Jewish Voice for Peace and Within Our Lifetime. The student tent cities on these campuses appear to be similar and brand new, which may indicate that the Free Palestine protests on campuses are orchestrated and funded instead of a grassroots movement. I told you that from, October 7th on. Look at those signs. They are mass-produced, not pieces of Bristol board mostly. You see some of that, but, a lot of these signs, especially, when the protests first erupted, demonstrations I would call them, uprisings, these people came out and they had these professionally produced, at printing shops, signs. This was a pre-organized, ready-to-go movement. Almost like the people who put them together knew October 7th was coming. Some critics believe the leftist leadership in the protests against Israel's war in Gaza is designed to divide Americans. No kidding! What would the evidence of that be? Well, just look around. That is exactly what is going on. And I'm hearing people, say that these are just like the Vietnam protests in the 60s. No. Not quite. No, these are the result of very sophisticated information warfare tactics, folks, and funding, organization, and information warfare, all which is also designed to get people out into the streets. They promote these things. They find ways to nudge and promote online using social media. So be aware, a lot of these people out there at these demonstrations are just useful cannon fodder. We've got people fighting with each other, get everybody jacked up emotionally, and it's just a repeat, rinse and repeat. Whether it's George Floyd protests or Black Lives Matter this or Antifa that, and then people get out there and they end up doing this.
Not having law and order. I really don't care what you think. And if you don't like it, then you can leave this country, because that's what we expect in America. We expect you to abide by the laws. And as we're watching on the screen, people are now getting hurt. They are fighting. This is going to get very nasty very fast.
This is very nasty right now, this minute. We've just seen an out-and-out brawl.
Welcome to UCLA, home of higher learning. Jeez. Stupid. Ridiculous. It's so freaking stupid. Oh my God. I mean, come on, man. Here's Ron DeSantis in Florida saying, if you want to behave like that, don't come to Florida. He is saying that encampments will not be allowed on campuses down there. And again, I'm telling you, man, this guy, he's a leader. I don't blame him at all for taking this stance, because these are not just protests. It's just stupidity on display.
Try to set up encampments. You are not going to be allowed to do that in this state. And people have found that out at University of South Florida, Florida State. So just understand that that's the way it's going to go. We do not allow the inmates to run the asylum in the state of Florida. And if you can't abide by the rules that we have in place for conduct, then we will show you the door and you will be expelled. It is that simple. That's what we're going to do.
Yeah. Ron DeSantis. Today, RFK Jr. had an event, a news event. He was addressing these accusations of being a spoiler candidate, right? And by a spoiler, of course, that's a candidate who basically doesn't have a path to victory, only runs because they have an ulterior motive of undermining one of the other candidates by pulling votes away from them to prevent them from being elected. So I think both sides are actually accusing him of being a spoiler both ways, okay? And so what the campaign did is they ran their own poll. I think the sample size was around 26,000. So I think it was 26,000, if I heard correctly during today's event when I watched it. I've got a clip coming up. That's a big sample size. So the margin of error on a poll of that size is pretty slim, less than 1%. I think what they quoted was 0.6% in this poll. And the poll shows apparently that RFK Jr. can beat Trump if it was a one-on-one race and people had the choice. Now, I'm not exactly sure what the methodology was behind the poll, and I'm not exactly sure how the questions were phrased. Those are important things to look at. But they're saying at the campaign level, campaign officials, that RFK Jr. does have a path to victory, that he's not just a spoiler candidate, that if he were to run against Biden, he would win in a landslide. And if he ran against Trump, he would win by a little bit. And in a three-way race, it looks like right now, according to the polling, Trump would win, but only by a little bit. Something like that. So, the RFK Jr. campaign, RFK Jr. himself, taking the position that he is the only guy who can beat Trump, because in the same polling, they showed that Biden loses to Trump in every other scenario. So, RFK Jr. has come up with a no spoiler pledge. He's challenging Joe Biden to sign the same pledge, and what he's saying is that in October, just before the presidential election, they would run a poll. And he would sign, these two guys would sign this pledge, and if the polling shows that he's a spoiler, preventing Biden from winning, he would drop out. I think that's basically the way that it works. And he's challenging Biden to sign the pledge. And if it's the other way around, then Biden would drop out and clear the track so that one of them could take on Trump and win the election. And he says he's willing to take the same pledge with Donald Trump. Odd campaign tactic. I'm not sure if it will resonate with voters, but I think it will maybe firm up support among people that already support him, and maybe bring in some votes from people who are on the fence, who always are of that mindset that they don't want to waste their vote on a candidate that doesn't have a chance of winning. So this polling, if people take the time to look at what they announced today and understand it, will show people that he does have a chance to win, and so it maybe is reassuring to them, and maybe might convince some people to get off the fence and come over into the RFK Jr. camp and cast their ballot for him. Here's RFK Jr. at today's event explaining.
This is a no spoiler pledge, which we're announcing today. This is a pledge that I offer to take if President Biden also takes it. Both parties agree to co-fund in mid-October a 50-state poll with 30,000 or more likely voters. So this is essentially, effectively, zero margin of error in October of 2024. The survey will test the results of a head-to-head race, pitting President Biden against President Trump, and a second head-to-head race, pitting me against President Trump. Both parties, whoever performs weakest against President Trump in a two-man contest, will drop out of the presidential race. So this is a spoiler pledge. And by the way, I'm happy to make this same pledge, although President Trump is not a spoiler because he can actually win. But I'm happy to make this same pledge with President Trump because I can do better against President Biden than President Trump can. Oh, people who are frightened, who are voting for President Trump because they're frightened of President Biden should be supporting me, and vice versa. And ultimately, I think what we all want in this election is that for Americans not to feel that they have to vote out of fear, that they feel that they can vote out of hope. And that is only going to happen if there's a two-way race between me and President Trump or me and President Biden. The other thing is, if you picture what this country is going to look like in November, if either President Trump or President Biden won, the division is going to continue, the anger, the vitriol, the chaos, the polarization is going to worsen. The only way to end that is through my successful candidacy. I want to thank all of you for coming out here today. God bless you. Thank you very much.
RFK Jr. I guess the most important thing to do at any time is to try and keep an open mind about things. About him, about politics in general, about life, even about the war in Ukraine and the war in Gaza. If you become too entrenched in your positions, you never have any room to move. You box yourself in. Be open to information. Get a broader perspective on things. That gets you closer to the truth. Back to these demonstrations, I would call them uprisings. This is a University of Texas, a statement from them. And again, this is what I'm getting at, okay? These are not just protests. No, these are uprisings. The University of Texas issuing this news release saying the University of Texas, can you see that? There it is. UT statement regarding arrests from Monday's protest and confiscation of weapons. The University of Texas learned Tuesday that of the 79 people arrested on our campus Monday, 45 had no affiliation with UT Austin. These numbers validate our concern that much of the disruption on campus over the past week has been orchestrated by people from outside the university, including groups with ties to escalating protests at other universities around the country. To date, from protesters, weapons have been confiscated in the form of guns, buckets of large rocks, bricks, steel-enforced wood planks, mallets, and chains. Staff have been physically assaulted and threatened, and police have been head-butted and hit with horse excrement, while their police cars have had tires slashed with knives. This is calculated, intentional, and we believe orchestrated and led by those outside our university community. We will continue to safeguard the free speech. Did you hear that? They will continue to safeguard the free speech and assembly rights of everyone on our campus while we protect our university and students who are preparing for their final exams. Makes sense. You're not going to hear about that in a lot of other media outlets. Some of them afraid to report on things like that. Isn't that interesting? Guns, bricks, chains, mallets, hammers. This is what they brought to the protest. Not all of them. Some of them. The serious ones. Yeah. The House has passed an anti-Semitism bill in the wake of those arrests. It's aimed at combating anti-Semitism as pro-Palestinian protests continue to cause chaos on college campuses across the United States and to some degree in Canada. It passed 320 to 91 in a vote. So the bill is titled the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act. It mandates that the Education Department adopt the broad definition of anti-Semitism that is used by the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, which is that's an intergovernmental group. to enforce anti-discrimination laws. So this group has a definition of anti-Semitism that identifies it as a certain perception of Jews which may be expressed as hatred toward Jews. And the group says that rhetorical and physical manifestations of anti-Semitism include things like calling for the killing or harming of Jews, or holding Jews collectively responsible for actions taken by the State of Israel. In other words, if you have somebody standing next to you, or a next-door neighbor, or a student in your class who happens to be Jewish, it isn't right to hold that individual responsible for the actions of the government of Israel, which is something that happens during times of war with a lot of different countries. I mean, remember during the beginning of the Ukraine war how Russian athletes weren't allowed to compete at certain events, and there was a lot of, I would say, prejudice on full display against Russians here in the West, ramped up, I would say, to some degree by media. Not fair, not proper. And this, though, given the rise of anger and hatred toward Jewish people since October 7th, this is of growing concern, though. That's why we're getting this bill passed in the House. Certainly something to pay attention to. And while that's going on, this is what it looked like. And this is why, again, this is more evidence that these are not just simple protests. When the LGBTQS plus left-wing, liberal, woke people take down the Canadian flag and manage to fly their flag, the gay pride flag, the pride flag, outside the Prime Minister's office. Or in front of government buildings. I see a lot of that as flag capture. It's taking down the country's flag and replacing it with that flag. And what did we see here on this campus? City College, New York. Police going on to the campus, and after regaining control, they went over to the flagpole, and this is what it looked like. This, folks, is like a scene from, and I don't like to use the word scene so much because it's not a movie. This is reality, but this is what you see in an actual theater of war. This is the Palestinian flag coming down, U.S. officials, police throwing it on the ground, and putting the American flag back up. Ladies and gentlemen, America is under attack. The country truly is. It has been for a long time. This is just very visual now, these uprisings on campuses, the marches on the streets, the violence. No audio on this. The American flag back up. We're still a long way from the United States or Canada falling as a result of these uprisings, but that's what they are. It's just the truth. That's the truth. And here's Joe Biden, and this might tell you something too. I'm just going to show you the report here tonight. It says, President Biden is considering bringing Palestinians from Gaza into the United States as refugees. This, according to a CBS report tonight. federal U.S. agencies are figuring out how to resettle Palestinians from Gaza. According to the report, one proposal would use the United States. Let me show you. Here it is. Here's the report. Or a response to the report from Colin Rugg. According to the report, one proposal would use the United States Refugee Admissions Program to bring in Palestinians with U.S. ties who may have escaped into Egypt. Those who pass the eligibility requirements would then fly into the United States with refugee status, receive housing assistance, and have a path toward citizenship. We already have, a lot of people concerned about mass immigration. We certainly have a lot of concerns about it up here in Canada, and Trudeau has also indicated in recent months that Canada would be willing to take more refugees from Palestine as well. So I don't know. How do you guys feel about that? Let me see what's going on in the chat. Haven't really been looking in there at all tonight. Bond says no flags but the Canadian flags. And Choosy says Richard Medhurst, he's not that cute kid anymore. Yeah, man. Tell me about it. Said enough about him last night. And Megrim making reference to Lori about supporting RFK, should not be disingenuous about mentioning his climate policies. Yeah, personally, I'm not really sure what to make of his climate policies. I have noted, and Lori mentioned this actually in a private conversation last night, which this portion doesn't need to be private, but she said, he's more of a conservationist. I've noted that too. At least that seems to be the slant on his environmentalism. I have noted that. And there is a difference between, the sort of the politically correct globalist climate change kind of environmentalism and conservationism. I'm more of a conservationist myself. But the proof is in the pudding, and I need to look more closely at exactly what he has supported. I don't know exactly, the telltale sign would be exactly what his position would be on climate change itself. So I don't know. We'll look at it more closely, and I'm sure Lori could probably help us along with that too. Bond says, it's not racism, it is purely numbers. Yeah, we don't have the social or economic resources to take millions more people into our country. That is just the reality of it. Yes, that is true. I agree with that. And, the other thing is, it is about numbers, and it is sort of about race, because you need some balance, in my view. If you bring only this group of people or that group of people and you skew things too much, you change the very fabric of your society. Because you get all these different cultures, political ideologies, all mixed in together. Whatever you do, you're changing things. But, and I don't have the answers, right? But I don't have the answers to what they're doing other than to, slow down. But, you know what I'm saying. It's, why are they not bringing in more Christians? Why are they? It's why are they bringing them all from these countries and not from those countries? It seems to be a little unbalanced these days. It doesn't seem to be. It is unbalanced. So, questions surrounding that I have, which I will likely not get good answers. Anyway. Also tonight, this is May 1st, right? So yeah, Loblaw, the Loblaw department, or grocery store chain rather, reported today $13.58 billion in first quarter revenue. That's revenue, not profit, okay? There's a difference. But that's a 4.5% increase from a year earlier. And all this coming at a time when, starting today, there was a boycott Loblaw stores campaign that kicked off. So I don't know how you guys feel about that. Are you going to be boycotting Loblaw stores? They own a lot. It isn't just the grocery store chain, the main one. I think they have the superstores. They own Shoppers Drug Mart stores in Canada, which dominates the pharmacies, the pharmaceutical industry on the retail side. So the company's quarterly profit was $459 million, marking a 9.8% increase. Earnings per share, $1.72 on an adjusted basis, an increase of 11%. And dividends were hiked for this quarter to shareholders by 15%. You know, as I look, though, at the lay of the land and the rate of inflation, and you might not like what I'm going to say, I don't think that's really that far out of line. If you have just overall inflation in the country running at a pace of anywhere from even like 7 to 10% officially, I think inflation is higher than that. It would only make sense that revenues would increase by a parallel amount, because prices go up because there's inflation. Money's worth less. So in order to keep pace, you need to increase your overall revenue. It only makes sense. And correspondingly, the number for the profit would also be higher. But the true value of the revenue and the profit is, when adjusted for inflation, would only come out to be about the same as it was 1 year earlier. I don't think that those numbers are honestly out of line, but Jagmeet Singh and the NDP, they're singing this tune of corporate greed. They're saying that's what's fueling inflation. And I'm sitting here consistently telling you, no, it's Trudeau's monetary policies printing money in order to spend record amounts of money, accumulating more debt during his reign of error than all previous prime ministers combined. That's why you're getting inflation. That's the way it works. It isn't because the big companies are greedy. They want their profit and they're going to maximize it. No question about that. But this is the socialists' way of, or communists or the fascists, whatever you want to call them. This is their way of making a big excuse for their big spending habits and their money printing. Yeah, Donald Trump keeps meeting with foreign officials, and the Dems don't like it. They don't like it at all. It's really irritating them. So here we are 6 months away from the next presidential election, and mainstream media highlighting this concern. This reminds me of what Trump did the first time he was elected, just prior to the election, after Hillary Clinton said that he wasn't presidential and didn't have the sophistication to, I'm paraphrasing, to be president, didn't know how to behave. So then he turned around, and it was within days he went down for a head-to-head meeting with the president of Mexico. And it was all the pomp and circumstance, and it was covered widely, and it cast him in a very presidential light, and it showed that he had the skills to meet with other world leaders. Right after she said that he didn't have the skills or the polish to do it. And when he did it, she came out and she literally said, well, that's not the way you do it. She said that in an interview. And it's exactly how you do it, man. And he did it, and he's doing it again now. He keeps meeting with all kinds of world leaders, including the president of of Poland, President Duda. There he is right there. He's been meeting with a number of them. In the past 2 months, he's hosted President Duda, Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban, former Japanese Prime Minister Taro Aso, and David Cameron, the former British Prime Minister, who is now serving as the UK's Foreign Secretary. He's also spoken with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman and a bunch of others. And he has the venue to do it too, with Mar-a-Lago, right? So they come down there and meet with him. And of course, that also fuels a lot of the people who would suggest that maybe he has more power in his current position than he actually does. But he does have a lot of power, even as he sits in the periphery. He controls the Republican Party now, doesn't he? And he wields a lot of power there, and that came to play as the defense spending bill wound its way through that aid for Ukraine and Israel and Taiwan. And it was Trump, MAGA, that really stood opposed to that. No question about it. Trump has a lot of power, even though he's not in the White House right now. Looks like he's got a definite path back there, though. 6 months away. 6 months goes by pretty quick. A lot can happen. We'll see. The whole thing with RFK Jr., man, looks like he's got a shot, maybe. But I'll tell you, he's got to pick up the pace. 6 months. It's not a lot of time to really drive it home. You know what I'm saying? Not when you're up against a heavyweight like Trump and you're up against that big Democrat election machine. You know, you really have to get in there and figure out a way to eat Trump's lunch. Speaking of lunch, out in Edmonton, I wasn't aware of this, came to my attention today. Check that out. There's a Mickey D's bag. Well, if you want a Mickey D's bag when you go through the drive-thru, you gotta pay 15 cents now in the city of Edmonton. They have imposed a regulation forcing these fast food restaurants to charge 15 cents. Yes, just like at the grocery store or at Walmart or wherever you're going. If you want a bag, now you got to pay 15 cents, though. I talk about inflation. 15 cents for a paper Mickey D's bag. So if you don't want one, like they'll ask you when you go through, do you want a bag? Cost 15 cents. And if you say no, I guess what they do is they hand the food to you through the drive-through window on a tray. And then you have to sit there and pick all your food off it and get your drinks, put them in your cup holders and hand the stuff back to your kids and everything. Here's this lady posting on social media about it. This is Nadine Ness. She says, Edmonton, are you okay? I just went through McDonald's drive-thru for breakfast and was asked if I wanted a bag for 15 cents, which I answered no, a bit confused, thinking, quote, I don't need the big bag the pancakes comes with. Then they proceed to hand me everything on a tray for me to fumble through and grab while passing it on to my kids. The lady said, it's only in Edmonton, and that the city is forcing them to charge 15 cents for the paper bags your food comes in, even the small ones. She says here, wokeism makes life harder and more expensive for everyone. Yeah. Can I please have a straw? Not a mushy paper one. And I just, I really want my bags back. We were paying for the bags before anyway, because the cost of the bags is built into the price of the merchandise you're buying. It's a cost of doing business to the store. So it was already there. Now, they're just putting it up front for you to pay it there. But You're paying extra, in my view. They're marking that stuff up. They're making a profit on the bag, too, but not selling as many of them, I guess. And I always forget to take the stupid bags to the store with me. So I get there, and then because I'm such a stingy guy and so darn poor, I'm like, I can't afford the nickel or the dime. So no, I'll just carry everything in my arms. If you're like me, you get home. Like, you know what I do when I forget my bags? I open up the hatch on my VW, and I chuck it all in the back loose, and then I drive home and I go and get a box and come out to the car and throw everything in there, and I grumble like the grumpy old man that I am, and I walk into the house and I unload all the stuff. But what an inconvenience. It just makes me grumpy, and I get grumpier and grumpier every day because of stuff just like that. Drives me nuts. Just those little things in life, that's the stuff that matters to me the most. I mean, they can do a lot of other stuff in government that makes no damn sense, and it doesn't really affect me that much. But you take my bags away and my straws, and I get really curmudgeon-y. Don't do that to me no more. I can't take it anymore. It's just too much. Like, that's the sign of tyranny right there. Like, truly. It truly is. So the organizers of that grocery store boycott against Loblaws, I guess they want a grocery code of conduct is what they're after. I guess they want a commitment to affordable pricing and price caps on essential items. She said, this is ridiculous. Honestly, I get why people are upset, but things cost what they cost. And we already have laws in place to prevent price fixing. And they've been caught doing that in the past. Particularly, I remember there was a case against Loblaws. Pretty sure it was Loblaws, yeah. And some other grocery store chains for fixing the price of bread. That was 2 or 3 years ago. They got caught. They paid the fine. They don't care, though. The government ends up giving them money back in grants and tax breaks. Loblaws being the recipient of all those millions of dollars at our expense during the pandemic to put in brand new refrigerated freezer units into all of their stores. We paid for that. Thank you, Jagmeet Singh, for getting people jacked up and lying to people and making them think that you can actually just control the prices of things just by writing it down on a piece of paper. The costs of things are the costs of things, and the costs of everything are going up because of the carbon tax and money printing and high taxation. So it's not going to matter if they sign a grocery code of conduct or not. You know what ends up happening when you lay on regulations like that? I'll tell you what happens. Unforeseen, unintended consequences. You lay on layers of regulations when it comes to pricing. What the grocery store chain will do is they will pick and choose the products that they make money on and the products that they don't. If they can't make money on a product because they're forced to put a price cap on it and they're going to lose money on it, do you know what they're going to do? They're just not going to stock it. They'll take it off the shelf. So if peanut butter is a product they can't make money on, they just won't sell peanut butter. And then you won't have it. It won't be in the store. And it'll just be that simple. Do you understand now why in communist countries, all through history, they have shortages of things at the stores? It's because of regulations like that. They fix the prices. Price fixing. You're supposed to have laws against price fixing to make sure people aren't charged too much. But when you have price fixing imposed by government regulation to make sure that people pay less than something's actually worse, the people selling the products, they just stop selling it. And then you can't buy it at all, so you just don't get it. You're not allowed to have it. And that hurts everybody all the way down the line, because then the people who produce the product at the factory, say if it's peanut butter and you have a peanut butter processing plant where they put it into the jars and make the stuff, they lose their jobs. The peanut farmers, they lose their jobs. They go out of business. Do you see how it works? It sounds like a great idea. We'll just force them to put a price cap on it. Yeah, and then you don't have peanut butter. Or when I go to Cuba, there was no ketchup. Sorry, utopia blown up. That's the way it works. You cannot escape the laws, and I mean the natural laws of economics. Oh, you can make stuff go up for a while, or maybe even come down for a little while, but in the end, you can't get away from the supply and demand law. It's a law of nature. Maybe we'll go out and do a little grocery shopping this week and take a look what's going on with that Loblaws grocery store boycott. We'll give you a first-hand report. How does that sound? Find out what's going on in a Loblaws store. What else do I have for you tonight? I think we've covered a lot of ground here, haven't we? Yeah, we certainly have. And you know what? I appreciate all you guys who are still here with me, because we presented information here tonight that I think a bunch of you probably didn't want to hear, but you're still here, which means you have an open mind. And that means you are truly a critical thinker. And you have more information than the other people. And that means you're getting closer to the truth. Now, if you would like to support this program, you can do that by liking, sharing, and subscribing. Please consider subscribing over on Rumble. We need lots of people to go over there to ensure that we survive in this era of censorship. I'm beginning to think we might actually be the most censored independent media outlet in Canada. Maybe not, but we don't have Facebook anymore at all. We've been hammered over on YouTube because some people don't like us telling the truth. But we'll continue to do it the best we can. You can also support us by donating at maverickdonations.com. At the Give Send Go. You can also support us at freedomreporters.com. That's the PayPal. And if you, yes we do, here, I'll give you an example again. We have these long sleeve tees. If you donate $45 or more, I can send you one of these guys. $30 or more, and I can send you a Maverick News t-shirt. $60 or more, and I have embroidered long sleeve, not these short sleeve ones. We have those really nice Dickies shirts that are embroidered. I can send you one of those. We have hoodies in stock again as well. I got to see, I had some stuff made, whole stack of it. I hope somebody buys it. Or I'm going to have a very odd wardrobe of every different size. Some things will be here, and some things will be way down there, and I'll be wearing it until I'm long gone. Maybe they'll bury me in it, in all the Maverick clothes if nobody buys the stuff or donates to get it, because it's really, that's all it is. We're not even really making anything on it, to be honest, after we ship the stuff out, but that's okay. I just appreciate you guys watching mostly, so thank you for that. MaverickDonations.com or FreedomReporters.com, beginning of the month, and yeah, thank you. We did get a couple of donations the other day when I sat here and begged, so appreciate that very much. Still got bills to pay, need your help, but I do appreciate you guys who are backing us up with that support. And thank you to Dragon tonight for that fantastic effort out there at McGill University. Not an easy thing to go up to people who don't want to talk, and he was trying, but you saw what happened, man. People clamming up Didn't want that camera pointed at them. They didn't want to talk to him. What does that tell you? Tells me a whole lot. But good effort, Dragon. Love you. And love you guys too. I'll be back here tomorrow night. Same Maverick time. Same Maverick channel. Catch all you guys on the flip side.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.